Imagine waking up in a world where every move you make could be twisted into proof that you made a pact with the devil. In the Middle Ages, superstition ruled as much as kings did. People believed the unseen world was constantly at work. And if you stood out in any way, too smart, too beautiful, too different, you could find yourself accused of witchcraft. A black cat brushing against your skirt might seem innocent to us, but in that era, it was enough to earn whispers behind your back. Cats, especially black ones, were thought to be demonic companions, aiding witches in casting spells. If you knew how to heal with plants, you were walking a thin line between being a respected herbalist and a feared sorceress. Something as simple as brewing chamomile tea to ease a neighbor's stomach ache could lead to accusations that you were poisoning or enchanting them. The same went for birthmarks. Today, they're nothing more than quirks of nature, but in medieval times they were seen as marks from the devil himself, a brand of ownership on your soul. Predicting the weather was another dangerous skill. Say you notice the air change and warn of a storm. If you were right, people might see it as supernatural foresight rather than observation. Midwives were often targeted too. Bringing life into the world should have been celebrated, but the pain of childbirth was believed to be divine punishment for Eve's sin. If you eased at suffering with herbs or techniques, it meant you were meddling with God's will. Even talking to yourself could be dangerous. A muttered word in an empty room might be interpreted as speaking to spirits. If you made potions, whether for health, beauty, or cleaning, it could be seen as brewing something sinister. Living alone was risky as well. People feared those who didn't blend into the community, imagining they were hiding dark secrets in their solitude. Physical appearance could work against you too. Having red hair was enough to earn suspicion, as it was associated with passion, danger, and the supernatural. On the flip side, surviving a deadly illness that claimed others was equally damning. Rather than seeing it as luck or a strong immune system, neighbors might believe you bargained for your life in exchange for serving dark forces. Objects in your home could seal your fate. A jar of animal bones or a carved charm might be part of harmless folk tradition. But to suspicious eyes, they were tools of magic. Beauty could be a curse. If you were strikingly attractive, it was said you used spells to captivate men. If you were extremely unattractive, you were accused of scaring crops and livestock with your appearance. Speaking more than one language was rare, and rare meant suspicious. People might think you were speaking in code with other witches. If you argued with local authorities, whether over taxes, rules, or religion, it marked you as rebellious, and rebellion was often equated with heresy. And sometimes you didn't have to do anything at all. If bad luck struck, a cow died, a child fell ill, a harvest failed, and you happened to be nearby, the blame could fall squarely on you. What made all of this worse was the way fear spread faster than facts. Once the accusation was out, it became a wildfire. You couldn't prove you weren't a witch because everything was interpreted through the lens of superstition. The color of your dress, the way you walked, the fact that you stayed up late by candlelight, it all became evidence. And the punishments weren't small. You could be imprisoned, tortured, or burned at the stake, all on the flimsiest suspicion. It was a world where paranoia reigned, and survival often meant keeping your head down and blending into the crowd, no matter how much it suffocated you. While some were being accused of witchcraft, others in the medieval world were bound by oaths, steel, and faith, warriors whose lives were the polar opposite of the lonely, feared village outcast. These were the Knights of the Crusader Orders, men who swore to defend their faith at any cost. They weren't just soldiers. They were part of religious brotherhoods, living under strict codes of conduct. The Knights Templar, perhaps the most famous, were easily recognized by their white mantles marked with red cross. They protected Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, and their military skill was matched only by the wealth and mystery that surrounded them. The Knights Hospitaller combined battlefield courage with charitable work, running hospitals and tending to the wounded while also taking up arms. They wore black robes with a white cross, a sign of their service and sacrifice. Then there were the Teutonic Knights, a German order known for their discipline and campaigns in Eastern Europe, often clashing with pagan tribes. Joining one of these orders wasn't just a matter of signing up. A knight swore vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to God and to the mission of his order. Training was brutal. requiring skill in combat and mastery of the sword, lance, and shield. But they weren't just warriors. They were also symbols of faith, carrying relics into battle and building fortresses that still stand today. Their armor was not just for protection. It was a display of identity and loyalty. The colors and symbols told friend from foe. Rituals marked every stage of their service, from initiation to the field of battle. And yet, for all their noble ideals, the Crusader orders weren't free from politics. Power and wealth attracted enemies, both outside and within the church. The Templars, for example, were eventually accused of heresy themselves, a bitter twist that saw many of them executed by the same kind of hysteria that had claimed countless supposed witches. It's a reminder that in the medieval world, whether you were a poor herbalist in a village or a knight in a sacred order, your fate could change in an instant. Power, piety, skill, or innocence didn't always matter. What mattered was how others chose to see you, and how quickly that perception could turn. Picture the heavy clang of armored boots replaced by the gentle clink of porcelain cups, the air thick with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. The Ottoman Empire in its golden age was not only a land of grand palaces and sprawling bazaars, but also the birthplace of a culture that revolved around a simple, dark, bitter drink. Coffee houses emerged as the heartbeat of cities, places where men from all walks of life gathered to sip, talk, and exchange ideas. Step inside one, and you find yourself surrounded by colorful carpets, low tables crowded with steaming cups, and the constant murmur of conversation drifting like smoke through the air. The journey of coffee itself was remarkable. It traveled from the mountains of Yemen to the bustling streets of Istanbul, carried along trade routes, and embraced for its ability to awaken the senses. But the coffee house was more than a place to drink. It was a social stage. Here, merchants discussed deals, scholars debated philosophy, poets recited verses, and musicians played delicate melodies on stringed instruments. Chessboards and backgammon sets were as much a part of the furniture as the cups and saucers, and games could stretch for hours. It wasn't all leisure. These gatherings had turned into hotbeds of political discussion, a fact that made the authorities nervous. More than once, sultans ordered coffee houses closed, fearing the exchange of ideas that might lead to dissent. Yet no decree could silence the craving for both the drink and the company it brought. The art of preparing coffee itself became a ritual. Beans roasted to perfection, ground fine, brewed slowly over a charcoal fire, and served in small cups without milk, but often with sugar or sweet treats on the side. To serve coffee was to offer hospitality, a gesture of respect and welcome that carried its own unspoken rules. The coffee house was also a bridge between strangers. Travelers might find themselves seated beside locals, listening to stories of distant lands while sharing in the same rich, dark brew. It was a world apart from the battlefield discipline of knights and the suspicion of village life, a space where conversation flowed as freely as the drink. And yet, it too existed under the watchful eye of authority, proving that in every culture, even leisure could be a delicate balance between freedom and control. From the warmth and chatter of an Ottoman coffee house, imagine stepping into a place where every movement, every piece of clothing, carried centuries of meaning. The armor hall of the samurai lord. In feudal Japan, the samurai were more than just warriors. They were the embodiment of discipline, loyalty, and honor. Their armor was not simply protection for the body. It was an extension to self, a statement of rank, clan, and readiness for battle. Donning that armor was almost a sacred act. The process began with layers of underclothing to protect the skin, followed by the the cuirass that shielded the torso. Armored sleeves, kota, guarded the arms, while sunniate wrapped around the shins. The kabuto, the helmet, was more than just metal. It was often adorned with crests that symbolized the wearer's lineage and spirit. A samurai did not put on this gear carelessly. Assistance from trusted retainers was common, and the etiquette between them was steeped in respect. Each piece had to be adjusted precisely, for comfort and for honor. Colors and designs were deliberate choices, often representing family crests or personal achievements. Even the lacing that bound the plates together could carry symbolic meaning. Armor was clean, polished, and stored with care, for it was both a tool of war and a treasured possession. To neglect it was to show disrespect not only to one's craft, but to one's ancestors. Samurai armor etiquette extended beyond the battlefield. In the presence of a lord, armor was worn and removed according to strict rules. You didn't simply sit in armor before a superior without permission. In times of peace, it was displayed as a symbol of vigilance, a reminder that readiness was a virtue. Every bow, every movement, even how a sword was placed beside its owner, followed codified traditions that reinforced the samurai's identity as both warrior and gentleman. This life demanded balance. Strength paired with restraint, courage matched by humility. It was a far cry from the chaotic accusations of witchcraft in medieval Europe, the holy vows of the Crusader orders, or the lively debates in Ottoman coffeehouses. Yet all shared a common thread. Each was a stage where identity was shaped and judged, where survival depended not just on skill, but on understanding the invisible rules of society. Whether you were a woman accused of brewing evil in a humble village, a knight riding under banner of your order, a merchant debating politics over coffee, or a samurai standing ready in gleaming armor, the world you inhabited was as dangerous as it was fascinating. In every age, the way you lived and the way others perceive you could define your fate. The lines between honor and shame, between hero and outcast, were drawn not only by deeds, but by the stories people chose to tell about you. And as